Ed Case, another edition of my Cruising with Congressman Case. I'm here with an incredibly special guest, my colleague and partner in the U.S. House, Congressman Kaiali'i Kahele. Aloha.
Aloha.
How's it going today?
Great. Good. Excited?
Good to see you.
Mahalo, mahalo.
You know, this has been, as we take this, it's December 20th, 2021. So the first thing we want to say is a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This will probably air after Christmas, but we're in the Christmas spirit. And of course, we're both looking forward to 2022. You know, 2021 has been a difficult year in many, many ways. But for me, the high point of my year was having Congressman Kaiali'i join me as my full partner in Congress. It's been a wonderful partnership. He has grown incredibly during the year, and it's really cool to spend a little bit of joint time at the end of the year just talking story. We're going to cruise today in my car. It's a kind of an old car, you know. I think you'll be okay.
I'll be okay.
It's the kind of car, speaking of where we are, we're at the Makapu'u Lighthouse. And the reason we're here is because this is where the 1st and 2nd congressional districts split. So on this island, at least, at Makapu'u Lighthouse, if you go on the leeward side, that's 1st Congressional, my district. If you go on the windward side, 2nd Congressional, Kai's district. And so we're gonna go cruising on down his district, Waimanalo, Kailua, Kaneohe, and then cross over and spend some time in my district and talk story along the way.
Looking forward to it. Aloha. Thanks for having me, and we're excited to share with you the 2nd and 1st Congressional District on the island of Oahu. And very, very excited to go stop by local businesses and take you to some special places and some special people that we want to feature today. So mahalo for putting this together.
Okay, cool. Let's go.
All right. Aloha. Yeah.
So the 2nd Congressional, back to your district, which I represented also for 5 years, and I really enjoyed it too. I think it is a fantastic district. I think it's one of the most diverse in the whole country. It's one of the most beautiful, as you say. It's every single island has its own personality, and even on each island you have your own personality. You know, West Side, East Side, Big Island, and you know, Central Maui versus Lahaina and West Maui. A lot of people forget that Oahu has a 2nd Congressional too. They kind of think, well, 1st Congressional, that's you know, me and all of Oahu, and I don't represent all of Oahu. I represent the city of Honolulu. But you've got a huge part of Oahu.
I've never been down this side.
So this is really interesting here, and this is worth your a trip.
Hawaii Pacific University.
Hawaii Pacific University on the left, and then the Makai Pier over here. This was a legacy of Sea Life Park when it first started up. It had a scientific side to it, and there are some companies that lease the end of that pier, and they're doing world-class research in deep ocean mapping. And so it's a perfect test facility. These are local boys that started up this company. They actually live in Hawaii Kai, but they're in your district. And they get federal funding. And so
ocean mapping.
Ocean mapping and related stuff having to do with ocean exploration, ocean use. They work a little bit with some of the military services, but these are good paying jobs that are off of that. I think they've got an employment base of about 20 or so. And that would be worth the tour.
Yep.
I did it a couple of years ago.
So now we're coming up on Waimanalo.
Yeah, and I know that you know, Waimanalo, of course, one of the highest percentages of Native Hawaiians in our state. It's the Hawaiian Homelands. Yep. And I know that you've been really deeply involved in your first year in Congress in the Hawaiian Homelands. So maybe talk a little bit about you know, your Native Hawaiian agenda and how it works into the Hawaiian Homelands right here.
So we introduced together HJ 55, and it's called the Prince Kuhio Protecting Families Legacies Act, and that bill will consent to the state of Hawaii's request through their legislative body and through a bill which became an act signed into law a few years ago by Governor Ige to lower the successorship blood quantum from 25% to 1/32nd blood quantum. So this will allow families to continue to keep their homesteads within their families and pass them to members of their families, whether it's children or grandchildren or direct descendant of the lessee, to allow that may not continue to have that 25% blood quantum because of intermarriage and other reasons, allow it to keep it in the family. So that's something that I continue to hear stories from people emailing me about, hey, how's the bill doing, where is it at right now. So right now the bill is been heard in the Natural Resources Committee, which you are a member of,
right,
and the Subcommittee on Indigenous Peoples, and we're waiting for a markup of the bill in the full Natural Resources Committee, and Chair Grijalva has committed to doing that at some point when we can get it on the calendar. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're trying to get it scheduled. Yeah, as you pointed out, I'm on that committee, and I'm on the Subcommittee on Indigenous Peoples, which has jurisdiction over Native Hawaiians.
Yep.
That's a really critical bill, and as we drive by the Homelands, we're talking about 4 generations or so now, sometimes more, of families living on this land right here, and it's a distinct community that people love and need to be able to continue as they have been for more generations.
There's a lot of Native Hawaiians that are on the list. That's a whole other separate issue we need to address, but what we don't want to be doing is kicking people off the homestead because of a blood quantum issue, right? I mean, that's the last thing we want to do. And so keeping people in their homes, allowing them to raise their families and future generations there is really, really important. And ultimately, it's what Prince Kuhio wanted, right? Originally, his blood quantum was 1/32nd, and we're only following the original intent
when he introduced the bill 100 years ago.
100 years ago.
Yeah.
His intent was 1/32nd. So.
And it was incredible. You put together a celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Hawaiian Homelands Act.
Yep.
Full 100 years. It's kind of funny. I don't know whether all that many members of Congress gave it all that much of a thought then. It was kind of a Hawaii thing, and of course Hawaii was far away and not top of mind to many members of Congress, as is sometimes the case.
Yeah.
But probably more so 100 years ago, and yet he got that bill through over some pretty solid opposition. But it was a huge deal for Hawaii, as it turned out. Thousands and thousands and thousands of Native Hawaiians able to continue to live on the land, and as you pointed out, successful bill, but needs to be updated to the date now.
Yep.
Kuhio never intended that it was going to be so strictly applied as to blood quantum that essentially after a few generations you would get kicked off the land as a family member.
Well, we just passed the polo fields and Bellows, and Bellows is a great place for me. I learned part of learning how to play volleyball was training with the Lokahi Volleyball Club at Bellows, way long time ago.
Oh, that was Velasco, right?
Yeah,
he used to take you to the. We're gonna stop in here at the Waimanalo Health Center.
Yep.
We're in Waimanalo town now. We're right across the street from Waimanalo Elementary, and we're at a really, really critical facility in Waimanalo, the Waimanalo Health Center. And I'm going to turn this over to Congressman Kaiali'i to tell us a little bit about what's happening here.
Yeah, mahalos. We're here, for those of you, of course, you live in Waimanalo, you're very familiar with the Waimanalo Health Center. The Waimanalo Health Center is one of a few very, very important FQHCs throughout the state of Hawaii. These are federally qualified health centers. They receive federal funds to provide health care in rural communities. Everything from dental care to kupuna care. They're very, very important. Of course, during a global health pandemic with COVID, they've been very instrumental in this community. The Waimanalo Health Center also specializes because of the Native Hawaiian population here, high concentration of Native Hawaiians on this side of the island. They do a lot for Native Hawaiians, and whether it's through the Native Hawaiian Healthcare Act and the federal funds that is appropriated to help Native Hawaiians healthcare through Papalokahi. There's a good synergy between our FQHCs, Waimanalo Health Center being one of them, Waianae Coast Comprehensive being another, Bay Clinic over in Hilo. So these are very, very important for our rural communities for healthcare.
Yeah, it's hard to underestimate the importance of the community health centers throughout our country. Community health centers service rural, underserved communities, not just in the rural areas. In this middle of Honolulu, for example, we have the Kalihikalama Health Center, which services very underserved communities and has been for decades. And these health centers are set up by federal law. They're funded by Congress, and we in the delegation pay a lot of attention to the community health centers because they're really, really critical, not just for communities that really just don't have access to good health care, but especially, as Congressman Kaiali'i was saying, under federal laws that are now a couple of decades old, they focus on Native Hawaiian health care. And in fact, throughout COVID, there has been a critical focus by the health centers on Native Hawaiians. This is where most Native Hawaiians got their care during the middle of COVID and other underserved communities. So we can't go in, like I said, because of COVID, but we're just stopping by to talk story a little bit.
The other thing the health centers like Waimanalo have is a very, very strong, robust community partnerships. Case in point, there's a newly opened part of Waimanalo Health Center that was raised a lot via private funds, foundation funds, the state legislature, granting aids, and so this healthcare complex is really a coming together of federal, state, county, private, nonprofit money to provide rural healthcare in a community like this. So it's very, very important.
So, tell me about your first year in Congress. I mean, just what you've had one full year in Congress.
Yeah, it's almost hard to believe that a year has gone by, but it's been an amazing first year. Definitely a lot of highs, a lot of lows. Highs for sure. Bringing my family to Washington D.C., Maria and the kids. The first time any of them had ever been there. So, getting to see, the smiles on their faces, their eyes, big, wide open, walking to the Capitol and just the whole, even under COVID and a lot of the restrictions we had, being able to participate in and have my family there to be sworn in as a member of Congress on January 3rd of this year was very special. 3 days later, the insurrection happened, clearly a low and one of our country's darkest days. And then we start to rebuild from there, and we inaugurate President Biden on January 20th, and then it's been nonstop since then. The American Rescue Plan that we were able to pass in March. Some important pieces of legislation that I was able to work on and introduce. Going back and forth between Hawaii and DC, clearly one of the hardest things about this job is the travel and going back and forth. There's no easy way to get to DC. It's a long flight and it takes a toll on your body, and it's usually a red eye. And
so what was your secret in I think all of us that have done it over the years have their own kind of rhythms to how they handle that commute and the red eye and everything else. What's your rhythm?
It is nice to stop on the West Coast and spend the night, even if it's for a few hours before making it to DC. But it's also, time is of the essence, so you gotta get there. And so I've usually been just sucking it up and taking the red eyes. I try and fly Hawaiian as much as I can, and so Hawaiian serves the Boston and JFK direct, and then I fly on to Reagan. So I've done that.
So that's your route.
Usually that's my route.
Hawaiian to JFK or Boston, and then
Boston,
down on the red eye.
Yeah, Hawaiian has a code share with JetBlue.
Yeah.
So Boston is my preferred route because they have a lot more frequent flights from Boston Logan down to DCA or Reagan, which is right next to the the Capitol complex and the DC area. So yeah, I mean that's what I've done. It's long, and but a lot of time to read and study.
How do you shake it off? What do you do? What do you do? Because
I always say I would get in and go take a nap and try and rest, but as soon as I hit the ground, my staff is waiting for me. There's a whole agenda of things to schedule. They try and not put too much on my plate on day one, but make no mistake, it's as soon as you hit the ground in DC, it's you're going, and it doesn't end until, I'm lucky if I go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning.
On the first day?
On every day.
On every day.
On every day.
Yeah. What's the best way down? Do I go down here?
Yeah, no, go straight. Okay.
You know the way.
If I go to bed by 1 a.m. on any day in DC, that's a good day. Part of it is the time zone change. Hawaii is either 5 or 6 hours behind, so I'm making calls back to Hawaii to check on people, see how they're doing. Of course, checking on my family. It's kind of hard to call them at 4 in the afternoon and tell them good night. My kids don't understand that, so I try and do that around 5, 6 their time. But then I get up early. I go to the gym. I work out in the house gym and get that done.
I hear you're a member of you're a sworn member of the early morning muscle club.
Yeah. I'm there, and there's some good members there. Jimmy Panetta, Josh Gottheimer,
Luke Correa
is another one, and Tim Burchett from Tennessee. And it's a good place to get together, bipartisan with other members. Both Democrat and Republican, work out, talk story, and
who taught me that was, and I'm not a regular at the gym. I should be, but I'm not like you. And I'm kind of episodic. I go for months at a time, on and off. But Abercrombie, when I first went to DC, and I think that's what, just to divert a little bit, that's what's been really good about the Hawaii congressional delegation through the decades is, when a new member comes in, you try to get them going as fast as you can, and kind of pass along whatever knowledge you had. And I remember I told you in the fall of 2020, I said, well, one thing you want to do is get into the gym right away. And that wasn't me talking, that was Abercrombie talking to me. Yeah. Because he said, one thing you want to do is get into the gym right away because, the politics kind of falls away, and you just, you're talking story, maybe you're jogging, maybe, you're
working out,
you're doing weights, basketball, whatever, and you can form friendships there that will stand you in good stead over the time. So you've done that.
For me, athletics always a part of my life. Even growing up, as a kid in Hilo, playing basketball, baseball, volleyball. Played in UH volleyball. So you could come to Congress, and I played on the congressional basketball, baseball, and football team. And that was a lot from basically July through about November, but it gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of new members that I would have never met before, because it's so hard to meet people on the floor. You really have to be deliberate, strategic, who you want to meet with. Everyone's meeting, they all got something they want to talk about. But when you get on a baseball field in the morning or get on a football field, you really get a chance to get to know people. So that's been one of the most meaningful things I've done this year, is to get to know other members of Congress, senior members of Congress, and to give them a chance to learn about me. That's been great.
2 reps out of 435. You can get lost really easy. And
we have like 220 members in our House Democratic Caucus.
Yeah, even
I don't know everybody.
Yeah,
I mean there's many people I haven't met yet. I'd say I probably have. Say I have 100. I have 100 that I know, I recognize, I know their name, a little bit about their background, where they represent. But
well, 100
takes
in
a lot
the
of
first
work.
year is not bad.
It takes a lot of work.
You got another 100 next year.
Yeah, you got another 100 next year. Hopefully, yeah.
But those relationships just come in. You just never know when it's going to happen. And you never know on the other side too.
Yeah.
Because you talked about some of the people you hang with in the gym that are Republicans, and obviously the congressional sports teams are bipartisan.
Yep, they're bipartisan.
So that's I think you've done that well. I think you've developed a really. I mean, there's people you hang with on a regular basis, whether because you kind of have the same agenda or you just have the same interests or whatever.
I've noticed that on the floor, there's like certain groups, certain cliques that sit in the same place all the time, and
so this is kind of an interesting thing that you bring up, because so when I first went to Congress, I noticed that too, and
straight.
There's a real temptation, and when we're talking about the floor, just for the folks that are listening, we're talking about the full House, when the House comes together in the big chamber that you all see to vote or to do other business or to debate, and you have really the only time during a day that you're going to have, or a week, that you're going to have all of the members of Congress coming into that chamber. Yep. So that's not only an opportunity to vote and to debate, it's an opportunity to develop relationships and get your business done.
Yep.
Because, if you have to go through the other office, you got to go through all these staff. Which way?
You're right.
Way, right? You have to go through
it's crazy.
staff.
You got to make an appointment. You got to go through staff. It's super hard to do.
And as opposed to just, hey, okay, like a lot of times I'll tell my staff, okay, well, I'll just catch her on the floor. I can just have a quick conversation with her on the floor. And
look, all the people standing in line. It's 8 in the morning at urgent care in Kailua.
You think that's for COVID test?
We're getting tested.
Yeah. Well, as we speak, we had 900.
Get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Get your booster.
Really? Yeah.
Okay, we're looking for the coffee shop. It's Lanikai Juice. I think we're in this shopping center right here.
Okay, well, we're in Kailua town.
Kailua. We'll get some coffee at Morning Brew.
Get a little bit of coffee on the way.
Coffee, support local business.
So let's talk a little bit about Kailua, Kaneohe. Your community's on 2nd Congressional. This is the biggest one on this side.
Yeah, biggest one on this side. Beautiful place, obviously it's changed a lot in the last few years. It's become a prime tourist destination, and we've heard a lot from community members here, but it's still a special place. Kailua Canoe Club, Lanikai, Maria grew up here.
Your wife?
In Kailua, my wife Maria, and the Day family still live here in Kailua, and we love coming down here, bringing our kids. Arguably one of the most beautiful beaches, long stretch white sand beach here on this side of the island, and of course looking at the mokes and watching the sunrise come up is always beautiful here in Kailua. You know what Kailua has too? They have a very strong neighborhood board.
Yeah.
Something unique about the island of Oahu that you won't find on any of the other islands is neighborhood boards that are established by the county charter, and they're one of the great places for civic engagement in a community. And I know you participate in your neighborhood boards. We do the same, and I
actually started on the neighborhood boards. So that was my introduction to my first political race. Was
for a neighborhood board?
Neighborhood board.
Oh, wow.
Manoa Neighborhood Board.
Wow.
I served on Manoa Neighborhood Board 4 years, 2 years as chair. And the blunt reality is, if I hadn't have done that, I never would have been in Congress today. The lessons that I learned there on the neighborhood boards, and they're a fantastic way to figure out what's actually happening in the community.
Yep.
I think we have, I don't know, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, 36 on this island?
Because we have about, Ikaika, how much we have?
11.
We have 11 neighborhood boards in CD2.
I have 25 or 26, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And my staff goes to them because that's where we pick up the vibe on what's happening in the actual community. And we've gotten so many good ideas for Congress and how to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Consider is like I went around Hawaii a lot when I was during my from all the islands at one point or another, and I had campaigned statewide and spent time in the communities throughout Hawaii, and I thought I knew it, but to actually know a district of 750,000 people, you got to really work at that. It doesn't just happen automatically. I guess you can coast on it if that's who you are.
No, it doesn't.
But it doesn't work out. You don't understand until you get in the communities, get in the neighborhoods, talk to, like we were talking about, the neighborhood boards, the businesses. So how did you handle that in your first year? I mean, I've got a logistical district that's really compact, and so it makes it a lot easier. Like if I land from Washington D.C., it's like 15 miles one way, 15 miles the other way, a couple of miles wide. Got my 750,000 people. I can get anywhere in my district from my office or from my home or from the airport inside of an hour at the worst in bad traffic. But you got the entire rest of the state. How did you do that?
So we started the Congress with really important goals for our district office and our district operations that largely focuses on constituent services. I was, you elect a Hilo boy to Congress, he gonna move the office to Hilo. So, I was, fortunate enough to be able to relocate Hawaii's second congressional office over to Hilo, and mahalo for coming when we opened and blessed our office. Really appreciated you and Audrey's presence there. But part of moving our office to Hilo and deciding how we would engage the district statewide, we had a couple things that we set at the beginning. The first thing we did was we made sure we had solid field representatives on every island, and so we did that. We took the 4 part-time positions that we have in our office, and if you're wondering, the House allows us, Congressman Case and I, to have 18 full-time positions and 4 part-time positions to staff our Washington D.C. and our Hawaii offices, which sounds like a lot of people, but it's really not. It's really not a lot. But with that being said, I took the 4 part-time positions and I placed them on Maui, Molokai, Lanai, and Kauai. Of course, our district office is on the Big Island, so we have that. We have a staff there of about 12. And then here on Oahu, my deputy chief of staff and my communications director reside, and so they anchor our Oahu operations. So first thing was we made sure we had enough representation on throughout the state, and then the next thing we did was say, well, we need to go visit these islands, like you just said, and how can we split our time to do that? So we said we want to go to the major islands twice in this first year, and we're going to go to Lanai and Molokai at least once. And so we did that. We went to Kauai twice, we went to Maui twice, we went to Lanai and Molokai once each. Of course, we spent a lot of time here on Oahu, and we spent a lot of time on the Big Island. And so, that those trips that we took, and they weren't just fly in, fly out trips. They were solid, 3-4 days, site visits on every island, from sun up to sundown, packed agendas, and allowed our field representatives to be able to, with local community leaders, develop those site trips and what we would see and where we would want to go based on, some of our objectives and priorities for. Yeah,
I noticed you were doing that. I thought that was really, really good, was to not just jet in and out, for a day, like you fly in the morning and you leave in the evening, but to actually spend, because I saw you over on Kauai for whatever it was.
Lanai, we went for 3 days.
3 days, and
I'd be at the Blue Ginger Cafe every morning, just having breakfast and drinking coffee, and guys would come in and I'd just be sitting there talking story with them. But
I mean, that you can start to absorb a little bit more about a community when you stay and spend the night, and you have more conversations that are not so business meeting scripted. Like you can cruise around a little bit,
right?
Like you said, go to whatever the local restaurant is. And
we also had some natural disasters. In March we had catastrophic floods and heavy rains that did a lot of damage on Maui. So, you know, I actually stayed back to go to Maui so I could get as much information as I could and bring back to the delegation, to yourself and Senator Schatz and Hirono, say, hey, this is what Mayor Victorino needs right now on Maui. This is the bridges that are down. This is the status of the reservoir on Mahipono's property. We met with Shansutsui there to make sure that the reservoir wasn't breached. But you know, that's the kind of information I can bring back to the delegation and say, here's how we need FEMA's help. You know, here's how we need other federal agencies' help. Kauai was another example. We had the mudslide in Hanalei.
Yeah.
So those site visits are really important, especially during times of crisis in our community.
They're not connected, or at least they're very
I think you're gonna make this left, right?
left
Coming up by the fire hydrant, yeah.
on this side of the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you're gonna go right to that big building. Oh, we passed it. We gotta turn around. Watch out, big bump over here. Yeah. Follow the Toyota truck. Yeah, you're gonna love this.
I've been wanting to come here for a long time.
Oh, you should see this building they built with the American Rescue Plan funds, or some kind of funds that they did. And I was here about 2 months ago. It's incredible. I'm excited to see what it looks like now. I'm just gonna park right by that home.
All right. So I'm going to let you narrate where we are when we get there. Aloha. How are you? Good to see you.
Aloha, aloha.
Aloha.
Oh,
How are you?
aloha.
Oh, wow, we got the whole gang.
Hey, good to see you again. Aloha, aloha, aloha.
Nice to see you.
Aloha.
Aloha. How are you? Good to see you.
Morning, morning. Aloha, aloha, aloha. Oh, thanks for everyone coming out. All right, all right. Aloha.
Good to see you.
Kuhio.
How are you? Good to see you. Wow. Hey, how's it, brother? Wow. How's it? How are you? Aloha. Good to see you. How's it? See you. Wait a minute. We got to talk about this guy right here.
Whatever, yeah, whatever.
This is
I think
Anthony
we have,
Ching, my
what
former
time is it,
staff
9:50?
member in Washington,
We should leave
D.C.
here
Actually,
within
he started in
about
politics
an hour.
as an
So right
intern,
around like
for me.
or just before
in
9:45.
2006? 2005. From the North Shore, and went to D.C. and decided to come home. And so, what do you do now?
I am the Director of External Affairs for TNC Hawaii.
The Nature Conservancy.
Yeah.
Well, mahalo for having us. It's great to be here. You know, for me, having a chance to come to Kako'oiwi about 2 months ago, really excited to see some of the changes that have been done in the last 2 months. And, you know, for Congressman Case, he hasn't had a chance to be here and to see this facility. So, you know, we're really excited to be here. And mahalo for our kupuna for coming out and for giving a chance to be here. So.
O kanea vai o loli, o ka wahinea vai o lola, o nā vai ho'oha vai. O kanea vai o loli, o ka wahinea vai o lola, o nā vai ho'oha vai. O kanea vai o loli, ka wahinea vai o lola.
Knowledge base that we can pull from, but this is what it used to be long ago.
Is that rice?
Taro, it might have already been converted back to lo'ikalo, but what we understand was rice, yeah? And so you can see no mangroves, an intact system, an intact fish pond. And so as we go out today, the whole idea is to restore it back to this area so that as climate impacts occur and more flooding occurs, this is one of the best green infrastructural pieces that not only generate food, economics, culture, but also provides an ecosystem service by banking water here on the land so that before it reaches the fish pond and the reef, it's actually held, the sediment is held. And that's kind of the some of it. Like our agricultural systems in Hawaii actually benefit the aina. It's not a detriment. So, and hopefully,
Awesome.
as we drive.
I don't think they think congressmen can know how to drive in the back of a truck.
That's right. Hey.
And with support of the PAC funding with Kavika and then from NOAA, was that kids can come to this location with their kids in vans. There's showers, sinks. They basically interact with the aina right here, stay in their bubble, leave without interacting with Kakuiwi staff outside of our educators, and then that way there is no transmission. And so the kilo stations were created to, one, they can witness and look out to see how the land changes, but also experience it here. And so that was 100% federal.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah, some
Sorry, I
of
don't
us
know if you
cares.
said that already.
No, I didn't. No, we didn't.
O hapai, o kanea vai o loli, kawahine vai o lola, o nā vai ho o hanau, o kanea vai o loli, o kawahine vai o lola, o nā vai o o hanai, Hawaii, hapai, hanau, hanai.
But in reapportionment, because the first congressional grew a little faster than the second congressional, I got to give you some of my district. So you get Ko'olina.
Yeah, Ko'olina.
I keep Kapolei, but you get Ko'olina,
Yeah.
Barbers Point.
Half of Barbers Point is
Half of Barbers.
what it looks like.
Yeah.
Not the Coast Guard stations.
Not like our colleagues on the mainland that are having to, basically get written out of districts or whatever.
And reapportionment, a lot of people wonder, how are we doing this census and this reapportionment? That's actually embedded in the Constitution. Every 10 years, the census will be done to determine population. And those population numbers determine the House of Representatives.
Absolutely.
And where those lines are drawn and how many each person gets, and the average member of the U.S. House represents, like you said, about 750, 800,000
Up to,
people.
average is maybe 730 or something like
Yeah.
that. But some districts have less and some more. You just can't have that many less or more. But the number of representatives is like you said, set by the census, and it moves. So there are states that are losing seats in the U.S. House, and there are states that are gaining seats.
Okay, so we're gonna go, speaking of him, to the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport right now, right?
We are. We're going to go, we did a little bit in your district. Now we're going to go and talk about something that it's in my district technically, but it's obviously critical across the board for Hawaii. Not just the airport itself, but the airport system. Talk a little bit while we're getting there. This is a critical area for you in particular because you fought very well and successfully to get on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. And so talk a little bit about that committee and what you've done on that committee and how that helps Hawaii.
Yeah, so I got fortunate to work hard and get on the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee. The committee is made up of several subcommittees, and I get a chance to serve on the Highways and Transit Subcommittee as we drive by the rail project. That's an important subcommittee that has jurisdiction over the FTA, the Federal Transit Authority, and this HART project. Rail. The other subcommittee I'm on is the Aviation Subcommittee. Really important for our nation's airports. As we see a couple F-22 Hawaii Air National Guard Raptors in the overhead pattern. 20 years ago I used to do that.
I've done it only once, and you know that maneuver he's doing right now to do the hard bank.
Yeah.
I kept it all in.
Yeah. Kept it all in.
I kept it all in.
So these guys have come up in fingertip formation, and the lead is in the left position, and he brakes over midfield, and then 5 seconds later the second one brakes, and that's how they develop that spacing. And then they come off the perch. They come off the perch, and they make their final to land. Yep.
And one thing I learned was they do that because they got to come down fast.
Yep.
They have to come down in a spiral on down, so they get down
typically
ground to air stuff can.
typically coming up overhead at about 250, 300 knots. So that brake turn allows them to bleed off that energy to get to a normal traffic pattern, so they can put the gear down and get final configuration of the flaps. But yeah, so I was in transit and the airport subcommittee. So fighting for airport dollars is really important. Airports are typically generated by their landing fees, and so as you can imagine, Honolulu International Airport, which is a unique airport, one unlike any other in the nation, because it serves major international and domestic commercial airlines. It serves the United States military through Hickam Air Force Base, and it also is a general aviation field that serves small aircraft, tour aircraft, whether it's fixed wing or helicopters, cargo, down on Lagoon Drive. So it's a really unique airport, and its air traffic control tower has to handle everything from a student pilot in a Cessna going out to do some touch and goes to the Airbus 380 flown by Japan Airlines, the biggest commercial aircraft in the world. So it's great to be here at the airport. One of the things I look at is, Honolulu gets a lot of money for its airports, but airports that do struggle are the much smaller ones, Molokai, Lanai, West Maui. And so making sure we're getting airport dollars, federal airport dollars, and then making sure we're working with our state partners. Ross Higashi is the Deputy Director for Airports under Jade Mutai, who is the Department of Transportation Director under Governor Ige. So it's a really important partnership that we all work together and leverage as much federal funding as we can. And of course, through the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act, like you said, about $3 billion are coming to Hawaii for infrastructure. There's a lot of money coming for our airports, especially the common use areas. What's a common use area? Taxiways, runways, lighting, infrastructure that is used by all airlines and users of the airport.
Wow! Hello! We came. Where's the hula?
Yeah, let's see it, man. Aloha. How are you? Good to see you.
Just missed her, but I'll dance for you.
Okay.
Okay, go for it. Well, we're in the brand new Concourse here, and we're with Rasugashi, the Director of State Airports. You have all of the airports, right? How many airports?
15.
15 airports across the state, ranging from this one, our largest, to what's the smallest?
The smallest one I would say is probably
Waimea.
no, Upolu.
Upolu Point.
Upolu Point. Upolu Point is still operating.
Hawaii Island.
Oh, really? I never knew that. So tell us about this new, this is just fun. Well, first of all, we have the Director of Transportation with us for the entire state here, Jade Butai. And just introduce your team here, and who else?
Engineer.
Worker delivering all these legacy projects, 3 big projects in 1 year.
Yeah, spectacular. So, Guy, why don't you tell us what did it take to actually put this together? Because you were here for the entire thing, I think, right?
Yeah.
How long did it take? So we started on this in 2006. The first thinking about the planning. Yeah.
Planning, came out in 2006.
Yeah.
We didn't get our environmental assessment approved until 2013.
Right.
At which time we started construction.
Yeah.
On the first project. The Mauka Concourse was the last of, I would say, near about a dozen or so projects to get done.
The whole airport modernization plan that we've been working on for quite a while. Lots of federal funding in that too.
Correct.
Right. And so how much did the concourse cost?
It was about 280 million.
280 million. And you were telling us earlier you're up for a national award for the Concourse, right? I mean, you're trying to get recognized for these.
I wouldn't call it a national award, but it's just the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design silver certification. It's for,
you know what? To me, that's a national award. Just take it.
Yes.
Global award.
Global award, right?
it's for sustainable energy efficiency, water reduction concepts.
Well, it's spectacular. I mean, and you say, Congressman, you've flown in and out of here.
Flown in and out of here. It's great to see this. What you would normally see if you went to international destinations, some of our nation's most modernized airports, this is reflective of it. When you look at this and you look at the rail line, you look at the newly completed car rental facility. I mean, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job, and the EGA administration, credit to their leadership and working together with the federal and local partners to bring this to fruition. This is fantastic. Yeah. What a great way to welcome people to Hawaii when they arrive.
Aloha.
Aloha, it's great to meet you, Representative.
Ed Case.
Hi, very good to meet you, John Daly.
Hi.
Excellent.
Nice to meet you, John.
Great to meet you, Mr.
Aloha.
Representative. Aloha. Excellent.
So
thank you.
Can you walk us through from here all the way down? What we're going to see?
Yes, sir. So what you see here, this is our distribution system flush. So what I'd like to orient you, it all begins at the fire hydrant, the yellow fire hydrant that's out in the field. It comes in through this hose right here, this light colored hose. It goes into these tanks. From those tanks, it splits out and it goes into its contact time with that granulated activated carbon, that carbon media.
Yeah.
That's capable of removing a wide range of contaminants.
So I'm sorry, these are the kind of the smaller tanks that came in yesterday.
That's correct.
You had the big ones, and then you have these. What's the difference between the really large one and these?
It's a great question, sir. So there's two. It takes two to make one of the big ones.
Okay.
So that's why you see four of them here. Whereas some of the systems that came in, you might have seen some of the images as they came off the aircraft. Those were a similar system makes up 2 tanks, whereas this one is 4 because these are 5,000 gallon tanks. Now the quality of the treatment is the same. It's really driven by how much contact time and how much volume of media these actually have to go through. So from there it goes through, there's a sample port over there where you see our contracted partners are over there collecting samples. They go to an independent laboratory for verification. And that's to basically demonstrate that this media system, this filter system, is effectively removing and returning water to the environment that's as safe as rain. And so from there, that water comes all the way through, and you'll see that our effluent point is down there. And in this case, it's a land application, so we're effectively watering the grass. Because we have this opportunity here with a wide grassy field, this is the safest way to return. That water that comes through has been filtered, it's rendered safe, and again, it's really a great use of that. The other opportunity we have is to actually put it into a storm drain. If it's a tight situation where we don't have a wide grassy field like that. And then the other thing, and again, this is part of the partnership that we've had with both the EPA and the Department of Health, is they said there's some cases where if you get special permits, you can put these into sanitary sewer waste.
Right.
And then if the Sand Island plant or Honolulu, for example, should they come into partnership with them, they might be able to receive those.
Okay.
Oh, how's that?
Yeah, hi.
How are you? Aloha.
Department of Health.
Oh, nice to see you. So DOH is just doing this right at the source, right?
Yeah, so we're doing some oversight of the sampling of the gas operation and everything, and then what we're doing is we're doing side-by-side field measurements just to verify some of the readings that we're getting today.
So what they're getting in terms of bringing it out, you're doing an independent review of that?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Just about field measurements, so temperature, pH, conductivity, dissolved oxygen.
But not the actual
Not the actual sampling. They're going to send out to the lab, and then later in the week we're going to do some replicate sampling.
Okay,
also.
great. Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you for
that.
coming. Have a great day.
We're working hard.
And these boys are here from Michigan for Christmas.
I gather you've done a lot of this before, or what's the expertise? Like, what's the worst spill you've had to clean up?
Oh, I just got back from pumping off a flooded hazardous waste landfill.
Where's that?
Louisiana.
So the landfill seeped down into the...
No, it was in containment. We got to get all the water out of there.
Oh,
that
I
was
see.
pretty bad.
Yeah. What about situations where you actually had contamination from whatever into a water system? Have you had to work with those?
Like this.
Yeah.
Where?
Not
Nebraska?
not really in the city water system. I haven't had experience
Yeah.
with, but this is extremely clean water compared to what we're used to dealing with. We're used to dealing with way worse.
Have you guys worked in the Middle East at all? Somebody told me that in the Middle East they're used to a much higher level of standard contamination in their water. I just didn't know if that was true or not. Or
I don't know.
I just a point of information. I guess. Have you all been to Hawaii before?
No.
Oh wow.
You guys staying?
Oh, we're at the DoubleTree over in Waikiki.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Well, we hope you get a
you
little
enjoy a
time
little bit of
for.
Waikiki.
Are you?
Can you guys go down to that system
Okay.
down at the end?
We better get you back to work because we want to get the water down.
All right.
Okay.
We will be informed by sampling at every route. So in other words, once we flush this, if our testing demonstrates that this plan worked, then we'll move on to the next step, but not before.
Okay.
And that's also with our parallel testing from our, from the Department of Health and the EPA performing independent tests as well.
Now, are you? I'm sorry, I'm asking a question. No. Are you? When you say you're doing independent sampling, are you sampling the water here, or are you sampling it in the houses coming out of the spigots? Because you've got the whole other part of this, right? To get into the houses and flush those houses.
Yes, sir. So we're doing this in phases.
Okay.
So the first phase is the distribution lines at the street, and that way we have a known, clean, again, tested, and once that results come back to say we have water that's fit for human consumption in the pipes at the street, at that point we go into homes and we flush individual homes. From there, we'll begin testing, and if the home flushing, and those sampling confirms, then we'll be able to release the whole neighborhood and say your water is now safe and fit for human consumption. So we're kind of eliminating variables by going to the distribution lines first. There's a backflow preventer to each service, and that's kind of what allows anything that might be remaining in a house, it can't go back into our distribution system. So it allows us to work from the street into the homes, and that also allows us to manage, our effort in terms of we're ready to flush the streets now, and then we'll go into the homes and return those neighborhoods as they come ready.
Yeah.
Walk through this whole process of what they're doing here to try and restore clean water. What are your thoughts on this process? Do you think
Well,
it's
the
getting
basic
done?
plan is to flush the entire Navy water system, and that's important to say. It's the entire Navy water system, not just the parts of the water system that we know were impacted by the fuel spill. But the Navy, in conjunction with the state and the federal partners, have a plan that's approved by everybody. It's thought through by everybody, and their approach is to flush all of the system. So just both the pipes themselves coming into the homes and then the homes themselves. And so they're I think doing the right thing and being safe and saying, we know that the water that is supplying the Navy right now, which is from the Waiava shaft, which has not been affected, it's a few miles from here, we know that's clean, and that's what's feeding the Navy water system, but we're going to take it all out. And then that's a critical part, of course, of stabilizing and getting our military and other families back into their homes in a safe way.
And once those various different communities, I guess you could say, and those systems get flushed, then we'll move into the next phase, which will be the individual households and how those homes are flushed, clean, tested, and rendered safe for families to start cooking, drinking, using for oral hygiene, and consuming the water in those homes. And you're talking, thousands of military homes affecting thousands of military families. And so that's what's happening right now.
The other important thing to note is that just behind us, behind these tents, both the Navy and the State Department of Health are both testing. So the State Department of Health is verifying what the Navy contractors are doing. So I think we'll have a good, foolproof and safeguard on that. And two people have to line up and say the water is either safe or not safe.
And not just safe for consumption eventually, but safe to discharge into the environment, which is what is happening right now. It's estimated that just today about 1 million gallons will be flushed from this location. That discharge started this morning. And so the Department of Health has also deemed that water that is being discharged back into our environment is also safe as well.
I know that's been a major concern for a lot of people. That water that is going back to the environment isn't safe. I've been hearing that from a lot of our viewers. Like, are we sure about this? Do you guys feel confident that is, after everything's been signed off on, that water is safe to be released back into the environment?
Yes, in whatever ways. There's a number of ways to discharge it back into the environment. If there's any question about whether it's not safe, then there's a whole other process that is being followed than water that is safe.
Yeah, I mean, this is a process that has been thought through very deliberately and has been able to come to an agreement by the Department of Health, the military, the EPA, and they've deemed that this is a process we need to do to flush this system safely and to be able to eventually get to the point where we can render the Navy's water system safe.
This is just a part of the problem. So the source of it is a whole nother issue. It's Red Hill, reserve fuel tanks there. Any comments on those as we're taking care of this part of the problem?
Well, this is the first thing that we have to take care of first. We have to take care of our families that are displaced, and we have to assure everybody, not just those that live in these homes and the businesses that rely on Navy water, that the water is in fact, again, safe. And everybody's got to sign off on that. So the Navy doesn't get to certify that. It's the Department of Health, the EPA. That's the first thing that we have to do. And that is underway. We have to monitor it all the way through. We have to verify it. And we all have to work together. But the second part is upon us today, as a matter of fact, in the proceeding as to what we do with Red Hill in the interim while we do sort through the next steps of Red Hill. Of course, the governor has said that operations must be suspended. The entire congressional delegation urged that, and it should be suspended indefinitely. And so that process is clearly before the Department of Health right now and the governor. We're trying to provide whatever support we can.
As we look at taking care of our people and the environment, part of this process will be also flushing the Red Hill well and making sure that the petroleum contaminants that are in that well presently now, whether it's being skimmed by Navy divers or eventually pulled out of the well to be run through large capacity, charcoal GAC filters, will get us to the point where we can also render the Red Hill well safe. Clearly, that's going to take some time because of the amount of petroleum that's in that well right now, and also being able to definitively identify the source of that petroleum. There's an ongoing investigation. So I think we need to take this in steps. Today is step one in getting back to a clean Navy water system. But you are in our thoughts, our prayers, and we wish you the best. Thank you for your service, and we are doing everything we can. We are moving heaven and earth to get you back in your homes and to get this Navy water system back on again.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, that was a very full 6 hours of cruising, just a small part of Hawaii's 1st and 2nd congressional districts with my colleague, Congressman Kaiali'i Kahele, getting Kai's thoughts on his first year in Congress and sharing some of our work together on behalf of our Hawaii. We hope you enjoyed it, and from both of us and our staffs on Capitol Hill and back home, we wish you and yours only the best in 2022. Aloha.